I have never liked elevators. Even as a kid, the idea of being inside a small box moving up and down inside a building felt unnatural. I prefer stairs. But on that night, I didn't have a choice. It was around 11:45 p.m. I had stayed late at work to finish a report. My office was in a 15-story building, and by the time I left, the whole place was silent. The hallways echoed with every step I took. I pressed the elevator button, and the doors slid open with a metallic groan. Inside, the fluorescent light flickered slightly, like it was tired. I hesitated for just a second, but stepped inside. I pressed the button for the ground floor and leaned against the wall, waiting for that familiar hum of the motor. At first, everything was normal. The elevator started to descend, but around the 7th floor, it jolted. Not just a small shake, it was like something had slammed into the side of the car. My heart jumped, and I grabbed the rail. The lights flickered again, longer this time, and then they went out completely. I was surrounded by darkness so thick it felt like it had weight. The motor stopped humming. All I could hear was my own breathing. I fumbled for my phone to use the flashlight, but just as I switched it on, I heard it, a sound above me. A slow, dragging scrape, like metal being pulled across metal. I froze, staring at the elevator ceiling. The sound moved from one side to the other, stopping directly above me. My stomach tightened. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. Just silence. And then a soft, deliberate tap-tap-tap right above my head. I hit the emergency call button. A faint beep confirmed it was working, but nobody answered. I tried again. Still nothing. My phone showed no signal. That didn't make sense. I always had reception in this building. The scraping sound returned, but this time, it was closer. I could swear I heard faint breathing, deep, slow inhales, almost like someone trying not to be heard. I wanted to believe it was my imagination, but then I saw it. The ceiling panel above the corner started to shift. Someone was pushing it open from the other side. I staggered back, my phone's flashlight shaking in my hand. For a split second, I saw pale fingers curl around the edge of the panel. Long, bony fingers with nails that looked too sharp to be human. I didn't wait to see a face. I started pounding on the elevator doors, screaming for help. My voice echoed in the tiny space, but there was no reply. The panel moved more, opening just enough for darkness to spill in. And then I heard it, a low whisper. Not words I could understand, just a raspy sound that made my skin crawl. I backed into the opposite corner, clutching my phone like it could protect me. The lights suddenly flashed back on, blinding after the darkness, and the panel snapped shut as if nothing had happened. The elevator lurched violently and began moving again, but instead of going down to the lobby, it started climbing. Floor numbers flashed above the door. 8, 9, 10, 11. I pressed the buttons, trying to stop it, but none of them responded. The elevator just kept rising until it reached the 15th floor, the top. The doors slid open. The hallway was completely dark. No emergency lights, no sound. Just pitch black. My instincts screamed at me not to step out. But as I stood there frozen, the whisper came again, this time from inside the elevator, right behind me. I turned around slowly. There was nothing there. The panel in the ceiling was shut tight, the light steady. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Then, a hand touched my shoulder. I spun around, swinging my phone like a weapon, but the doors closed, trapping me inside again. The elevator began moving, but now it was going down far too fast. My ears popped from the pressure, and I felt my stomach rise into my chest. Just when I thought it would crash, it stopped with a sickening jolt. The doors opened to a place I didn't recognize. It wasn't the lobby. It wasn't any floor I had seen before. The hallway was lit by a single dim, yellow light. The walls looked damp, and the floor was concrete. It smelled like mildew and something metallic, like blood. I didn't want to step out, but my body moved on its own. The second I did, the elevator doors slammed shut behind me. I turned around, pounding on them, screaming, but the elevator was gone. It wasn't just the doors, the whole shaft was gone, replaced by a solid, moldy wall. That's when I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, getting closer from the darkness at the end of the hall. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice breaking. No answer. Just those footsteps. I ran. I didn't care where I was going. I turned corner after corner, but the hallway seemed endless, looping into itself. My breathing was ragged, my legs shaking. And then I saw it, an open elevator at the end of the hall. Its light was warm, inviting, like salvation. I sprinted toward it and jumped inside, mashing the close door button over and over. As the doors slid shut, I saw a figure step into the light at the far end of the hallway. It was tall, thin, and its head tilted unnaturally to the side. Its eyes, I don't even know if they were eyes, just black voids staring straight at me. The doors closed completely, and the elevator began to descend. My chest heaved as I tried to calm down. When the doors opened again, I was back in the lobby. Everything was normal. A security guard was sitting at the desk, looking at me like I was crazy. I rushed out without saying a word, straight to my car, and drove home. I've never taken that elevator again. In fact, I avoid elevators entirely now. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in my apartment, I still hear that faint scraping sound above me. I still can't explain what happened that night. It was about a year ago, but even now, when I think about it, my chest tightens and I get that same cold feeling in my stomach. It was a Thursday, and I had stayed late at the office to finish some work. By the time I was done, it was close to midnight. The building was almost empty, just a few security guards downstairs. I work on the 10th floor, and usually I take the stairs. I'm not a fan of elevators, but after a long day, my legs were tired, so I pressed the call button. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. The doors opened, and I stepped inside. It was just me. The light in the ceiling was dim and gave the place a yellowish glow. I pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors closed, and the elevator began its slow descent. Everything was normal, until it stopped at the 7th floor. I didn't hear anyone outside, but the doors slid open anyway. The hallway beyond was pitch dark. No lights at all. I leaned forward to peek out but didn't step over the threshold. "Hello," I called out. No answer. Just silence. The doors stayed open for a few seconds too long, then slowly closed again. I shook my head and laughed nervously to myself. Probably just a glitch. The elevator kept going down. But then, instead of stopping at the ground floor, it kept moving. The number display above the door showed B1, the basement level. I frowned. I hadn't pressed that button. When the doors opened, a wave of cold, damp air hit me. The basement was poorly lit, with only one flickering bulb. I could hear faint dripping somewhere in the distance. I was about to press the close door button when I saw movement. Something shifted in the shadows at the far end of the basement. It was a person, or at least I thought it was. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like a dark suit. But there was something wrong with the way they stood, slightly bent forward, their head tilted far to one side, almost like it was broken. I froze, my finger hovering over the button. The figure didn't move toward me. Instead, it slowly lifted its hand and pointed at me. My heart was pounding. I slammed the closed door button, and thankfully, the doors slid shut. The elevator jerked and began moving up. I let out a shaky breath, thinking I was safe. But when I looked at the display, my stomach dropped. It didn't say G for ground floor. It said B2. I didn't even know there was a second basement. I had worked in that building for 3 years, and nobody had ever mentioned it. The doors opened to complete darkness. My phone's flashlight barely pierced it. I stepped back, keeping my finger on the door close button. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. I couldn't see who it was, but the sound was enough to make me panic. I pressed the button repeatedly, and the doors closed again. The elevator began to move, this time faster. The numbers on the display went up. B1. B1. 2. 3. And it didn't stop. Floor after floor passed, and the elevator only moved faster. My ears popped. The display reached 15, the top floor, but the elevator kept going. There shouldn't have been anything above 15. But the numbers kept climbing. 16. 17. 18. The walls of the elevator groaned, and I could hear a faint scraping above me, like something was crawling on the roof of the car. Then the elevator stopped with a sudden, violent jolt. The doors opened. I stepped out into a hallway I had never seen before. The carpet was old and faded, the wallpaper peeling. Every door I passed was numbered strangely, not like room numbers, but dates. Some from decades ago, some from years that hadn't even happened yet. The air was stale, and the silence felt heavy. I don't know why, but I kept walking. Halfway down the hallway, I saw an open door. Inside was a room with no furniture, no windows, just a single mirror on the wall. When I looked into it, my reflection didn't match me. It was me, but older, maybe by 20 years. My hair was thinner, my eyes sunken, my face pale. My reflection smiled, even though I wasn't smiling. Then it stepped forward, as if trying to come through the glass. I ran. I didn't care where, I just ran back toward the elevator. The scraping sound was louder now, coming from the walls themselves. I reached the elevator, slammed the button, and the doors opened instantly. I jumped inside and pressed G over and over. The doors closed. The elevator shook violently as it descended, like it was struggling to move. Finally, after what felt like forever, the ding came, and the doors slid open to the familiar lobby. Everything looked normal. People were walking past, chatting, as if nothing had happened. I stepped out, dizzy, my heart still racing. I turned back to look at the elevator, and my blood ran cold. The floor display didn't show G. It showed B3. I've never liked elevators. They make me feel trapped, like a metal box hanging by a few cables. But that night, I didn't have a choice. It was almost 1 a.m., and I had just finished working late at the hotel where I was the night receptionist. The hotel had 14 floors, and I was in the small office on the 12th. My shift was ending, and I was exhausted. The thought of walking down the long emergency stairs made my legs ache, so I pressed the call button for the elevator. The elevator doors opened with a slow, almost lazy motion. Inside, the light flickered once before stabilizing. I stepped in, yawning, and pressed G for the ground floor. The doors closed, and the elevator began to move down, but only for a second. Then it stopped at the 9th floor. The doors slid open. The hallway outside was pitch dark. All the lights were off, and I couldn't see a single thing. It was strange because every floor in the hotel usually had at least one emergency light on. "Hello," I called out, leaning a bit to look outside. No answer. No movement. I shrugged and reached for the closed door button, but just before the door shut, I heard something. A faint, slow tapping sound, like fingernails against glass. I told myself it was probably a guest or a cleaner and let the doors close. The elevator started moving again, but instead of going to the ground floor, it suddenly went upward. I didn't press anything, but the display above the doors ticked upward. 10, 11, 12. When it passed 14, I froze. There was no floor above 14. The roof was directly above it, but the numbers kept going. 15, 16, 17. I gripped the rail tightly. The elevator slowed and then stopped. The display read 21. The doors slid open to a hallway I had never seen before. The walls were covered in faded, peeling wallpaper with an old floral pattern. The carpet was dark red and worn thin. There was a smell, damp, moldy, like something rotting behind the walls. I didn't step out, but I looked left and right. Every door in that hallway was the same, old wooden doors with no room numbers. Some were slightly open, and from the gaps, I thought I saw shadows moving inside. My finger hovered over the closed door button when I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming from the far end of the hallway. I didn't see anyone yet, but I didn't wait. I pressed the button over and over until the doors shut. The elevator moved down this time, and my heart started to calm, until it stopped again, this time at the B1 level. The basement. I knew the hotel had a basement, but I had only been there once to help the maintenance guy. It was small and full of storage boxes. But when the doors opened, this was not the same basement I remembered. It was much bigger, with stone walls and a damp floor. Dim lights hung from the ceiling, swaying slightly as if someone had just brushed past them. I heard something breathing. Not a soft, human breath, but deep and wet, like air dragging through water. In the far corner of the basement, I saw it. At first, I thought it was a man. It was tall, but too thin, its limbs looked stretched, its shoulders hunched. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like its neck couldn't hold it straight. It stood still, but I knew it was looking at me. I slammed the closed door button again. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost missed it. The doors began to shut, but halfway, they stopped and opened again. The thing was closer now. Much closer. I screamed and started pressing every button on the panel. The elevator finally reacted and shot upward. I kept my eyes on the closing gap until it was gone. The elevator display showed numbers racing past. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it jumped to 10, 11, and stopped. The doors opened to another hallway, but this one was worse. The lights were dim, flickering, and every few seconds, they went completely out. When they flashed back on, the hallway seemed different. The doors changed positions, and sometimes they were gone completely. I stepped back into the corner of the elevator. The lights went out again. Total blackness. In that darkness, I heard something enter the elevator with me. The lights came back on, and there it was. Standing in the opposite corner, its head still tilted, its hands long and bony. Its fingers twitched, scraping lightly against the wall. It didn't move toward me, it just stood there, swaying slightly, breathing that horrible, wet breath. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred from panic. I reached out, pressed the ground floor button again, and the elevator moved. But instead of numbers counting down, the display showed something else. -1, -2, -3. I was going deeper underground. I thought I would pass out, but suddenly, with a violent jolt, the elevator stopped. The lights flickered out again. When they came back on, I was alone. The thing was gone. The display now read G. The ground floor. The doors opened to the hotel lobby, just as I had left it hours ago. A couple of night staff members were talking near the front desk. Everything looked normal. I stepped out, shaking. One of the security guards looked at me and frowned. "Where did you come from?" he asked. "The elevator," I said, pointing behind me. He glanced at the elevator, then back at me. "That elevator hasn't worked for years. We keep it locked. How did you even get inside?" I turned back. The elevator doors were closed. The button panel outside was gone, just a blank wall of metal. I didn't stay to find out what had happened. I grabbed my bag and left the building. Since that night, I've never stepped into another elevator. I'd rather climb 100 flights of stairs than feel that box close around me again. And sometimes, late at night, when I pass tall buildings, I swear I see that same elevator light on, glowing faintly on a floor that shouldn't exist.